Alright guys, welcome back. Guys and gals, I should say, this is going to be what I hope to be like a Carp Fishing 101 video, okay? We're going to start with some very basics, how to set up just sort of basic rigs. I'm going to talk a little bit about skill points, if I can remember. And then we'll go all the way up to a little bit more advanced stuff with some of the more advanced carp rigs and tools that you might use here at Amber. Now, early in the game when you're carp fishing, you're likely going to be carp fishing even possibly at Mosquito, but more likely at places like Old Berg and then Bear when you hit the appropriate levels. But I can't stress this enough that, oh, that is a nice barbel, guys. That's kind of a lucky fish to catch here during this series. I can't stress enough that carp fishing isn't something that you can do right from the beginning. You do have to earn your stripes, so to say, by fishing for a lot of the smaller fish, even if you're going to be primarily into bottom or feeder fishing, as I tend to be, and want to work towards carp fishing. It is something that you will get to, not something that you'll start at. So I'm fishing here at Amber. I'm really not trying to show off this spot. I did a video earlier about this spot. This spot is fine. There's a lot of good spots at Amber. But if I name this video Carp Fishing 101 or something like that, it's possible you're going to be seeing this video weeks from now, and spots will have completely changed. Bait preferences will have completely changed. So those are things that I'm not recommending you pay attention to in this video. What I'm hoping is I can talk through some of the very basics of carp fishing, especially for you guys and gals that have either just gotten enough gear where you feel like you want to go after carp at places like Bear or Old Berg, or even more so, there's been quite a few people here recently that have gotten to Amber and have been trying to figure out how to approach Amber, which can be a little daunting. It also can be a little expensive. Before I forget, let me say, if you are one of those people who are just getting to Amber or about to get to Amber, one thing I don't recommend you do is when you get here is to sink a lot of silver into tons of different boilies. And you'll see, considering how long I've been fishing at Amber, I don't have that many boilies, and this is why I tend to just buy what I need. Now, I've accrued a few. I mean, some of these are boilies I've had for a long time, and some of them are just ones that I never quite used up. But I tend to just try to buy what I need, because any given week when you're fishing, you're going to want to look at the weeklies. And this goes for all types of fishing and Russian fishing if you're trying to figure out what bait to use. And I do this all the time in my videos on the leveling guide and whatnot. But look and see what's hot that week. Go to the Russian Fishing 4 Discord channel. Hang out in a community in-game. You're always welcome to join us. If you click on this and search for MDawgs, you can find a nice community here with 475 current people logged into that channel, whether they're on or offline. But there's lots of other communities too. And just listen, hear what spots people are using, because the spots do change and the bait preferences do change. So when you first come to Amber, it's not about like, oh, I've got to get all of this, all of these boilies. You just want to get what you're going to be using. And that's the same for PVA, I would say, as well. Okay, before we get into sort of the basics of carp fishing, can we just celebrate for a second here? If you've been watching my videos lately, you know that I've been saving silver like crazy. And if you notice here, I've only got 53 silver. Well, that's because we now have our third and final carp reel, the Beluga Tagara. So I've never used the tag before. We have one now. Of course, we also have the Beluga Megara, which is probably my favorite reel, having not used the Tagara much yet. And then the strongest reel I have is the Beluga Vinga, which I don't love. I think if I could go back, I don't know that I would have purchased that one. I mean, it's great. And if you're fishing for sturgeon and stuff like that, obviously that added strength is nice. But for carp fishing, I feel like it's a little overkill. And I really, really like the Megara, and so far the Tagara as well. And so if we can just have a moment here, and it's very exciting to have this reel and to finally have saved enough silver to kind of complete the set of reels. Okay, so let's get this back out here. Thankfully, I will occasionally be catching fish so that you get a little bit of fishing mixed in, but I'm going to be doing, unfortunately, a lot of talking, so bear with me. And I hope this is helpful for someone. We'll see. Real quick, I did want to show you a couple of old reels that just have a special place. I've caught a lot of fish on this Trident Mayer, which I now have as part of my spod rod. I've also caught a lot of fish. Some of you have seen me catching a lot of fish on this Trident Everest 2. Thank you, Wrangler. And it's now my marker float rig reel. So it's just a nice, some of the prettiest reels in the game here. And I certainly feel that way about the main three that we use as well. That Tagara looks great. It's got that brown line on there. And I love the Megara with the deep blue. And I don't really know what to put on that. I'd probably like the Vinga more if I didn't have white line. Okay. Gold color. Okay, so let's talk about the very beginning. When you first start, I'm going to show you this basic sort of rig that you might use for carp fishing early on. And I don't mean like early on as in level 10. I mean early on as in level 22 or, like that's when you're thinking about like, okay, I've been saving my silver really hard. I want to get one good rig that I could catch be comfortable catching a big carp on. So maybe that rig would be something like this, okay? Now, if you've seen my leveling series, I tried to do this with Sabre 60s, my most recent leveling series. And it has worked okay, overloading the Sabres. This is the safer approach, is waiting till you have something like the Gold 80, Alpha 8000, the new Caliber. A lot of people like that. I haven't tried that reel. But this is probably what your setup might look like, okay? If you're at Bear or going back to Old Berg, because there's some hot spot for, common carp or grass carp there, black carp. You're probably going to be using either loop or inline. For carp, I typically use loop rig still. You've got some strong line. Honestly, with the Gold 80s or the Alpha 8000, you could overload a little bit more than this. You might even go up to 20 kilos in line strength. Just make sure your rod is stronger than your line, okay? So I would probably end up at about 18 to 19 to feel comfortable, but I think some people would go 20 or higher with the Gold 80s or the Alphas. But that's going to give you enough power to at least be in the fight with most carp, especially at Bear or Old Berg. We're going to put carp mix in here, ground baits. You got to level up your ground bait, right? We do have a leader. This is not... first of all, leaders aren't necessary for carp fishing in most cases, but that's just not the perfect leader. Let's see. So we've got 16 kilo line. So really what we want, I guess I just don't have one. So you really want a leader that's just under your line strength, right? And it looks like 17 is the lowest. Fluorocarbon leaders are fine, but honestly, mono leaders with carp fishing, especially places like Bear and here at Amber, you can use braided, these braided carp leaders are fine. Carp, you don't need to use fluorocarbon with carp as much, especially at Bear and Amber. So anyway, I don't know. I don't have that many nylon leaders on this account. When I was leveling on my main, I was just all about the fluorocarbon. I've since learned that that's not necessary. So let's say we might put a 17.4, which means we need to overload the line a little bit more than that. So let's say we put 18. So now we've got 18 kilo line, 17.4 leader. Most carp fishing, in my opinion, the starting point is a large one hook. That's just for me. Try different things. I should say that here at this point. For all of your carp fishing, try different things. There's so many options, so many ways to explore and do different things. But for me, the starting point is large one hook. And right now, again, these can change, but this is pretty consistent over time. If you're at Bear, if you're at Old Berg, if you just want to see like what carp are in the water, start with potatoes. Potatoes are going to catch more than carp. You might get some crucian gibbles, some other stuff, random bream or whatever, but you're going to catch some carp if there's carp there, and it'll show you a little, you'll learn about a little bit about the carp that are there. So that's really helpful, and it's a good place to start off with. We're not talking about boilies yet. We're talking about regular baits, right? Because we're doing loop rig. Other things you can try, any of the doughs. Again, look in the weeklies list, but especially things like honey dough and sweet dough. I mean, any of the doughs sometimes carp will like. Also, these three here, not peas as much recently. I actually skip peas, but cabbage leaf, corn seeds, cheese. A lot of times the carp will love those. Algae, of course, especially later carp. Press cake, but they're not in the store right now. So there's lots of regular baits you can use to go for carp, okay? By the way, if you're a really new player and still trying to figure these things out, if you're trying to change to loop rig or any rig, if you're on basic bottom, this is how you do it. And anything that you've unlocked at that point under your bottom feeder skills, you'll be able to choose. We've got 3 fish on, so let me drink a little bit, rest my voice, and take a little break here and catch some fish, or try to. I will say, when you're fighting carp, if you want to be on the safe side, what you want to do is reel when the carp is allowing you to reel. Now, with this heavy carp gear that I have, it's got to be a pretty good sized carp to have enough fight to fight against me. But if I want to lose less fish, if it is a pretty big carp, if I see that line swimming away from me or swimming even left to right, that means the fish is putting a lot of effort in. And I want to stop reeling. I don't want to pull. I just want to sort of let it be. You know, you just kind of stop everything. I mean, I don't have to do it on this fish because it's not that big a fish. But you see how it's kind of pulling? Your tension might go way up, you know. Hopefully it's not pulling line, but if it's a really nice carp or if you've got small gear, it will pull your line some. And then when it's taking a break, it's a little tired, go ahead and start reeling in. The more you fight it, especially when it's fighting back, what I find is the higher your chances of pulling that hook right out of that soft carp mouth. And of course, the nicer, more quality carp hooks you have, the less that'll happen too, it seems. So that's a nice mirror. Nice mirror carp. In a minute, guys, I'm going to show you how strange this spot is. Again, don't pay attention to the spot other than just to say carp fishing at amber is such an adventure, and spots can be just wild. And you know, using different baits gets such different boilies, different results. All right, so we've talked about the basic rig of basically using potatoes or other natural baits to help you first approach carp fishing. It's nice linear. I love these spots where we're seeing really pretty carp and different species of carp as well. Good job, Tagara. All right, let's see what the Megara's got on it. It didn't seem like it was very big. It was barely able to pull the rod down a little bit. And another safe tip for being safe is try not to right click at all until you're to the point where you're flipping the fish up a little bit or holding it up to net it. But the more you right click early, the higher the chance. I could tell that was young linear coming in. All right, so let's let these soak a little bit more. Let's talk about skills. Okay, then we'll sort of move into the more current carp fishing at amber and talk a little bit about boilie rigs and such, which I guess those will blend together. Okay, for carp fishing, the skills that we're most concerned about are bottom fishing, although I will tell you that, of course, having some points into making ground bait, I run 5 points on my main, will guarantee that you're going to have high quality ground bait and PVA for you to work with. It's really nice. I do have points in harvesting baits, and that's just mostly so I have as high a chance as possible to both dig and gather some of the more rare baits with that. But I'm level 37 now, so I've got a lot of points that have come my way. You know, all the way up through level 19, you're getting 1 point per level. But once you hit 20, you're getting 2 points per level. At 30, you're hitting 3 points per level. So it's hard to get a lot of these, skills with lots of points in them early on, obviously. And then you really have to figure out what you want to prioritize. I guess this is a full screen here, so let me just get rid of myself. Okay, the first thing I would put points in before you're fishing for carp, but let's say you're early on. I'll say this just even though it doesn't have to do with carp fishing necessarily. If you're going to do a lot of feeder bottom fishing, putting points in fishing with a feeder rod to me is the first priority. Okay, this gives you casting distance and accuracy. It gives you control of the fish. Every point does. And to me, it's just the most bang for your buck. At some point fairly early on, putting points in spinning reel is also nice, especially if you're doing a variety of fishing types, because this is going to be useful across all three. You don't have to put it in like it's right here. Those 5 points go across all three types of fishing. Okay, so you just put them in once and they're there all over the place. The other thing I often put points in early on are in the rigs that I use the most. So early on when you're leveling, that's going to be things like using a simple bottom rig, inline. You might do paternoster or you might skip paternoster. It's just up to you. It's totally your call. Remember, you've got one free reset of points, which I always tell people don't use till your 20s, because then by then at least you have fished enough to kind of know what you like and where you might want to prioritize putting points. But inline rig and then eventually loop rig. Okay, so that's what gets you to the point where you're ready to start fishing for carp. Now back here is fishing with a carp rod. So this is getting into sort of mid-game to late game. You can start putting points in fishing with a carp rod. This does the same thing as the fishing with a feeder rod. It's giving you casting distance and accuracy and control of fish. Now the big thing with carp rigs, okay, to start off with, at a minimum, you want to be able to use one rig that allows you to use sinking boilies. Classic hair rig is a good example of that. And one rig that allows you to use pop-up boilies. Classic pop-up rig is a good example of that. That's why I have points in these two rigs. Okay. As I get more points, by the way, I've got points in using a spod rod. That is equal to carp rod. I didn't put points in here. It fills up together. I'm pretty sure that's the case, or feeder rod, but I think it's carp rod. Will I eventually put points in some of these other types of rigs? Maybe. I might. It just depends on. I've started to try to experiment more and more with some of these other rigs. I have used maggot snap-in rig at times, because at times that's been a really effective rig to use here at Amber. But I don't use it enough to prioritize it. Chod rod, I've used that some too. It seems to be pretty good. Method. So if you notice here's, I don't know how to sort of transition into this discussion, but here at the bottom, when you get to 100% is when you can start using PVA. Okay. Before that, when you get pretty close, you can use the method rig. Method rig does allow you to fish with carp boilies and yet at the same time use ground bait. All of these other carp rigs, classic hair rig, classic pop-up, any of the carp rigs that you see here, you can't use ground bait. So instead, you're using boilies and dip. All the new dips they've put into the game, okay? Either sinking boilies, pop-up boilies. You might combo the pop-up boilie with some artificial corn. You might combo the sinking boilie with some pellets, but you're doing some combination of that, and I can show you what that looks like on a rig here in a second. However, once you get to method, you can go back to using carp ground bait, okay? We've got some more fish to catch, and this will also, or one fish to catch. This will also give me a chance to show you, well, actually I don't need to do it on this. I can do it on another rod in our inventory. So I'm going to show you what a method rig looks like compared to the other ones. Okay, real quick. Let's look at that, and then we'll talk about what to do before you unlock PVA. Okay, so here is the feeder rod that I showed you before. We've got this set up with loop rig, so we are able to put a feeder on there and put ground bait, okay? We've got some nice carp ground bait in here. So that's how we're targeting the carp. Well, let me show you on our carp rod. So this is our extra Fortuna carp rod. Let's say we wanted to use classic hair rig. Okay. All of a sudden, we are not able to put a feeder cage. Do you notice that? There's no feeder cage. That means there's no ground bait. By the way, I just showed you that on a carp rod. I could have showed you that on a feeder rod. Just because you don't have a carp rod doesn't mean that you can't use carp rods. Carp rigs, sorry. Where's classic hair? All right, so this is a feeder rod. We now have a carp rig setup. Only advantage of carp rods is they tend to be longer and they tend to be stronger. They tend to be good at catching big fish, okay? Hopefully this isn't confusing. I apologize if it is. If you have questions, just let me know. Now, when you get to method, okay, all of a sudden you can put a method feeder on there, which allows you now to go back to using ground bait. So let's put some carp ground bait, okay? So now we're fishing with boilies. I mean, that's the only difference. I feel like you need to see my expression here, okay? That's the only difference. This is all I wanted to do is hand signals. That's the only difference. Method allows you to fish with ground bait for carp. The difference is carp rigs will allow you to put boilies on your hook. Regular feeder rigs like loop rig and inline paternoster basic ground, all of those you use natural baits. You use different baits. You can't put boilies on those. All right. If I put a carp hook on here, I can put boilies. You see that? If I go to that feeder rod that we've been playing around that I've got set up as a loop rig, okay, I can put a carp rod on there. I mean, I can put a carp hook. Look, here's a nice carp hook. No boilies. Just want to make sure you understand the difference there, okay? Now, other than using method feeder, which if you have method unlocked, but you don't have PVA unlocked yet, by all means, use method. It gives you the ability to use ground bait. You'll attract more fish. It's good. I think it's good. It's worthwhile. However, what works really good at amber, and there's just no way around this, but what works really good at amber is PVA. Okay, so let's talk about and look at PVA. I hope this is helpful for someone. I know many of you know more about fishing than I do, know more about carp fishing than I do, and I apologize if you're sitting through this video and I'm probably saying things that aren't correct or in a different way than you would, but I've also talked to a lot of people recently in my chat and just across the board who don't do a lot of fishing in real life or don't do carp fishing or have a lot of questions about how carp fishing works specifically in RF4, another nice barbel. So that's why I'm doing this, and hopefully it's helpful to somebody. Okay. Was there a fish on our third one? I think there might have been, but it's chilling, so we'll let it chill for a minute. Okay, let's talk about PVA. All right. The difference in PVA and ground bait. Ground bait, you're making these balls, right? You're going to put a base on there, crackers. What attractant might you put on there? Some cookies, some maggots. Sorry, those are additives. What attractant? Some crab and mussel. Okay. What fish is this going to catch? Probably none. Catfish. I don't know. Nothing that I want to catch right now. But that's how you set up for ground bait. As hopefully you know. Hopefully you've been leveling up your ground bait. Now, when you get to PVA, it's a little different. What you're doing with PVA is you're making a dry mix. It looks very similar. You could still use crackers. You can put, it's more often that like with PVA mix, you might put some boilies in there. Although hold that thought on putting boilies in there. You can also put pellets. Down here at the bottom of the list, you'll see pellets. We might throw tuna pellets. And then, but still mostly what you're going to do is additives. But notice these feed pellets is what they're called. Again, additives. All right, these are your additives. And then same thing with attractant. So it looks very similar. And then you make it, and instead of making ground bait as in those balls, you're making a dry mix, okay? So you'll see there's nothing wet we're putting in here because that would screw up the mix, right? Okay. So, where with ground baits, can you still put wet stuff in here? I'm trying to remember. I may not be able to find the answer to that. I guess arguably the one wet thing you are putting into the wet mix is the dry mix is the attractant, right? That is like a liquid. So, okay. So the one thing I wanted to hold that thought on though with additives, yeah, you can put boilies straight in there, but what seems to work better in most cases is you can crush up boilies. If you have this tool, the bait grinder, you can take any boilie you want. Look at some of these Christmas boilies. Neutral. Any boilie you want, like tuna 16, let's say. And that will use 25 pieces to make a bowl or plate of crushed boilies. And then you go to your dry mix, and now you can add one of those plates of crushed boilies. Like here's mussels and fruit crushed. We could add that to our dry mix, okay? And so then you hit make. Now you've got a dry mix. Now the last step is taking your PVA material and adding whatever dry mix you just made. Okay? I'm out of PVA mesh. How embarrassing. PVA mesh is something you buy from the store. So you can name it whatever you want to, put the dry mix you want and the PVA mesh together, then you make it, and now you've got PVA bags, okay? The carp at Amber seem to love PVA bags. See it right here? We're using it on all three of these right now. All right, let's catch these fish. So that's what PVA is. What do you do if you haven't unlocked PVA? That Tagara has a nice fish on it right now, guys. I'm pretty sure the friction brake's turned up enough where something shouldn't be pulling unless it's a reasonably good fish. So what do you do if you haven't unlocked PVA? I'll have the answer for you after we get these fish in. It's getting a little dark. Let's see what's on here. I want to watch it because I'd rather not lose a fish while recording this video. And let me tell you, I'm not starting over. Okay, so the safe approach is wait until after he does that. If it's a strong enough carp, though, at some point, you're going to have to start reeling him in. But what you want to try to avoid is reeling him in when... Now, I'm pressing shift, by the way. You don't have to shift reel. It may be safer not to. I feel like most of the fish I lose is when I'm shift reeling against the fish's pull. But I almost always shift reel. So it's hard to really know if that's true. See that big pull right there? That's what we're trying to avoid reeling against. But you also don't want to sit here all day. I mean, this isn't a trophy. This is like a, I don't know, what, 14 kilo carp or something? Maybe not even that much. It's surprising how strong carp can feel at times. So at some point, you just got to get him in. But what I've learned is, if you want to lose less nice fish, be careful when you're reeling. And some of what's happening here is we're kind of trying to turn him towards us. He's sort of swimming against us or, just kind of hanging out. And we're trying to get him turned towards us without losing him. All right, my energy just went a little low. Let's don't give him any hope here. Let's keep our energy up. And believe me, I would normally pull this fish in much more aggressively. I'm just trying to show you some of the mechanics of when you have a decent fish on here. So now he's sort of sideways, and if he pulls away from us, I'll stop reeling, but he probably won't be able to now. I think we've got him close enough and moving in the right direction. So that's a nice little common there. Let's go ahead and net this guy. That is a nice common. 17. I like it. Okay, the question we were asking ourselves, what do you do if you don't have ground bait? Sorry, you'll have ground bait. What do you do if you don't have PVA? You're not 100% bottom fishing yet. Don't worry, a lot of people aren't. It takes a long time to get there. Use your happy hour, by the way. Fish with different types of bottom rigs. I don't know if it works or not, but it's worth trying. Fish spots that are high volume fishing. Lots of bites to give you those chance of getting those points. You'll get there. You'll get there. Okay. Until you get PVA. One thing you can do that works really well at amber, and I did this for a long time till I got, well, I shouldn't say a long time, because I think once amber came out, it probably took me another couple of weeks, maybe a month after that to get to 100%. I was already fairly close, and at that point I became pretty determined. But what works really well is using this spod rig, okay? I'm trying to see what that fish looks like on our, whoa! Let's just don't let him sit there. Let's go ahead and pull him in. I wonder if I can throw this spod rod without... Hey, it's a nice barbel. Look at that. I'm glad we went ahead and got that guy. The barbel are kind of the magic to this spot. Oh, I was going to tell you all about how crazy this spot is. Not that this spot matters for the purposes of this video, remember? That's like another little reminder there. But look at the different fish we've caught. A catfish. I don't ever catch catfish at amber. I mean, I know they're here, but typically the carp boilies I'm using, they don't tend to like them unless you're using like a real weird fish boilie or something. We've caught nice barbel, common carp, leather carp, linear carp, mirror ghost carp. This is a crazy spot. It's fun when you find a spot where you're like, I have no idea what the next fish is going to be. All right. So let's talk about the spod rod. I wonder if it'll let me cast it without any mix on there. I bet it will. That way I'm not spotting the water. I might scare the fish away, but that's okay. So all this is the Percy spod rod. The nicer spod rod you get, the longer it'll cast. I think that's the only difference. You also can purchase the Spalm rockets. The different sizes delivers different portions. Any rod and any reel and line, I think, will do. And then instead of making, remember we talked about how we're making dry mix, and then eventually you turn that into a PVA bag by putting it in the mesh, right? Once you've made the dry mix, before you turn it into a PVA bag, you keep it as dry dust and you load it up on your Spalm. And what this rocket is going to do is it's going to make impact with the water, and it's going to let that dry feed out in the spot where you're fishing to attract those carp in, just like that PVA bag does inside your carp rig. So if you can't use the PVA yet, this works really well. This is, I mean, I honestly, I did this for quite a while on amber, and I was having great success, to the point where when I switched to PVA, I was like, okay, I can kind of see, you know, it's good, but it didn't like blow me away necessarily, because I had been having a lot of success just using the Spalm. Okay, so let's say we had some dry dust loaded up, and we would want to use the same dust that we're actually using in our PVA here, because we know it's working. We know that we're clipped to 35. I know that I'm casting right at that over there. Okay, so all you want to do is cast it into the same spot that you're putting your rods. When you're spamming like this, it makes more sense to me to fish in the same location with all three rods, or pretty close, because you want all of them to benefit from that attraction of getting the carp going. Oh, it's not going to let me cast it. Okay, y'all just going to take my word for it. I don't really want to spam the water right now. Actually, I will, just for you. Let's do, what's something I'll never use again that I don't mind wasting a little bit. I think this caramel dry was one of the first things I made. All right, we're going to go to somewhere else so that we don't screw with our carp fishing tonight. All right, so let's just pretend like we're at our spot. We got a 35 clip, and we know exactly the direction we're casting. You literally just cast it out there. It's going to go exactly 35 meters because it won't go past that because the clip is on, right? Let it hit the water, and I usually let it sit just for a few seconds. I don't know that that's necessary. I think that what it's meant to do is the compact, like the collision with the water forces it to release, I think is how it's working. But I do like letting it sit there. And then once it's set there, you can go and bring it on in. You might want to do it twice, but I wouldn't do it more than twice. Some of that depends on how big of a spom you have, how many portions it's doing. But once or twice, that's all I would do. And if you look at the dry feed mix, it'll tell you how long the duration is. This one has 20 hours on it. So you literally don't need to do it again until 20 in-game hours have passed. It'll still be working for 20 hours. Okay? So that's what you do until you have PVA. Use one of these setups. Now I know all of this requires a lot of silver, and it'll take you a while to get there. You're just getting one piece of equipment at a time. Save up for one at a time. That's what I've been doing for a long time now. But it's worth it. I mean, the carp fishing is so fun. It's a good goal to have, something to work towards. Okay. The last tool that we want to talk about, trying to think what else is worth mentioning. When you do find what's working on the weeklies list, most of the time it's pairing really similar things. So this is a double pop-up boilie. Garlic mussel 16 with garlic mussel 20. Mussel dip. What's in my PVA? It's got some mussel and garlic stuff, and some other sort of standard carp PVA ingredients. Large one hook. Do I vary sometimes on hook size? Yes. Occasionally I'll go to 1.0 or 2.0, mostly 1.0, if the bite rate is really crazy and we're getting small carp, and I want to get rid of some of the small ones. I'll do but really large one, I mean, you catch lots of trophies on large one hooks. I know what. One more thing before we talk about our last tool. When you first get to amber, maybe you're still rocking a couple of Alpha 8000s and a caliber. Let's say you've got 3 sort of low-level carp rigs set up. Those reels on some Fortuna feeders or some kind of feeder rod that's strong enough to handle it. The first place you may want to fish, there are some pegs around this pond here. And casting about 20-21 meters towards this one in the middle, that's often a pretty good spot. The nice thing about the pond, you can't get spooled. There's some big carp at Amber, and Amber is a really big lake, as you can see. If you were fishing out on pegs on the main lake, those carp can get away from you. So that's a really good spot to try initially while you're making some money. And sometimes the pond isn't great, but a lot of times it's a pretty good spot to fish. So just pay attention to what people are saying. Another spot that's really nice, and maybe at the end of this video I can run over there and show it to you, but I think it's 6094. It's somewhere down here in this quadrant. Or is it this quadrant? Let's see. You leave, you come this way. I think it's like right here. So it might be C6. 6494. It's a peg. It's casting down into here if I'm remembering correctly. 35 clip. That's another really nice like early place to try. But you can totally get spooled there. I mean, if you're fishing anywhere than the pond, if your gear isn't strong enough, you can get spooled. See how the fish is swimming to the left really aggressively? Well, if I was going to play it a little safer, I would probably not reel against it. But I don't always follow that rule, and I sometimes lose fish. I mean, you just kind of have to. The only times I really slow down is if it feels like a really nice fish. Then I might be a little more strategic and allow it to tire out a little bit. Feels like the longer you stay in the fight, the better your chance of not coming unhooked is. I don't know if that's true, but that's how it's always felt to me. If I have a fish on for a while, it doesn't feel like there's as big a chance of coming unhooked. It can still happen, of course, but that's a small carp for this lake. Okay. Well, you've seen it over here, sitting here talking to us. This is a Fortuna Marker. All right. It's another tool we have in our carp tackle box. We have our old Everest on there, some random 4 kilo line. I don't know why I have that line on there. That's probably pretty ridiculous. Let's put some braid on there that's like worn out a little bit that we don't need to be using. So this has a marker and a marker lead. I guess that's the only one I have, huh? A marker sinker. I think I have 2 of these. Neither one of these are glowing. One's 15 grams and one is 7 grams. I'm thinking because of the shape and stuff, this one might cast farther. Honestly, the thing that I use this for the most is at nighttime, especially dark nights. I'll put it like 20 meters out so I remember exactly casting direction where I'm casting. But if I go to a spot for the first time, a lot of times I'll use this marker rod for what it's intended. So let's go to 35 clip and let me show you. Cast it to the exact same spot where you're casting all of your rigs. Okay? That is the exact spot we're fishing. Might be left or right some, but pretty much that's it. Now, let's go ahead and open the bail and let that float to the top. Okay? Now, what we want to do is go down to retrieval speed of about 5. There's 2 things we're finding out right now. 1, the texture and type of the bottom, and 2, how deep of an area are we casting into? I remember the other thing I need to talk about, but we'll come back to it in just a second. All right. So slow reel speed. See that marker went down? It's going to be going against the bottom. It's not real deep here, so it won't take it too long. And it's going to tell us the type of soil that we're casting into. All right, there it is. Clay. We see this is clay, okay? Now open the reel again. Open up your bail. In a second here, you'll see it float to the top. Now close your reel and reel it slowly so that it stands up. And now you've got a depth. We're fishing into clay in a spot that's 2.3 meters deep. Perfect segue into the last thing that I want us to talk about. All right, let's go ahead and actually we can leave that out there. I'll show you what I do. I don't usually have it that far away, but it's fine. All right, let's set this back up over here so it's actually, let's do a little bit farther right so that we don't have to look at that line constantly. All right, see how I got it standing up out there? Now I have a target to cast at. Okay, so let's get this fish in on our new Tagara. These Fortuna carp rods. I mean, I guess maybe one day I end up buying some nicer carp rods now that I've got my 3 reels set up, but I've got 3 Fortuna carp rods, but then my Vinga is set up on a Sage. I'll show that to you real quick. But these Fortuna carp rods have been awesome. First of all, let's look at those. They go up to 39 kilo load capacity. They just work really well. But I've got a Kingfisher Sage here. This is a sort of nice carp rod that gives you a bonus to bottom fishing skill and +1 to fishing with a carp rod ability. It's kind of cool. Okay. So the reason why the marker rig is nice is that if you would like to, you can set up your rig. So let's look at our rods again. You can set up your rig to try to match the type of bottom you're fishing on. Okay. So let's say we were going to go carp fishing with a Lacerti. Of course you wouldn't, but let's just say two of the required components are lead core and the feeder leader. If you're going to have a carp rig, those two things you have to have. They come in different colors. Now, the most common color that I see people using and that I use is the clay one. We just saw that we're fishing on top of clay. So we're going to obviously use clay. But if you saw that you're fishing over sand or silt or weeds, you might decide you want to match it with that. So let's say we were under the sand. All right, so this is 27 kilos strong, by the way. So you kind of want to match that up to your line and everything as well, just like your leader. So we would do, this is a bad example, guys. Let me go to classic hair rig is fine. We don't want to use method for this. All right, the two requirements are lead core. So what did we say we're doing? Sand and a sinker. That's what I was looking for. Now we also have to have a leader, but that's not really what we're talking about. You can try to match up your leader color, but that's not as big a deal as matching up your lead core and your sinker. All right, so see how this one, they all have different colors. This one's sand. All right, so now we've got sand and sand. All right, now we're doing clay and clay. Okay, so you can match those up. It's worth experimenting with. When you first start, I think clay is all you need because primarily that's what gets used a lot and seems to work fine. But as you have enough silver too and test different spots, and if you find out, hey, this spot's working really good and I'm fishing on top of weeds, well, let's try matching it with the weeds. It's worth doing. For some reason, just a lot of the spots end up being clay, and also I think, at least me personally, I just probably haven't done enough experimenting as I could fishing on different bottoms and changing up the lead core and the sinker color. Okay. I think that's all I have to teach you about carp fishing for right now. And the bite rate's picking up. This has been a really slow spot, but look at this, guys. I'm telling you, I have fished this and other spot a lot in the last few days. I haven't been seeing catfish. All of a sudden, the catfish are liking this garlic setup. That is 2 tiny catfish in a row. I don't know how big the catfish get here. I assume there's some big boys, but I doubt we're going to catch too big of a catfish on these boilies, but you never know. It's a pretty nice carp here. Or is it a cat? Do we have garlic, or is this the one with... No, we're using oysters on this one. Got to try different things. We've got garlic and oysters together with mussels. Makes sense, though. Mussels and oysters aren't that dissimilar. Look at this bite rate right now. The whole reason why I picked this spot for this video was because the bite rate was so slow, but the fish were pretty decent coming out. By the way, this bite rate is really fast with a slightly different bait setup. That's a nice comment, by the way. If we had on, and I've showed this in a video, but this is just to show you like how different baits can react. If we had on boilie and corn with the 16 mid-size carp, garlic and mussels, and then some mussel flavored green artificial corn, the bite rate goes to the roof. But the fish also tend to get smaller. with some big ones mixed in. But what I have found is that if I go to, I think this one was on 20 and oyster 20. If I go to just like big pop-up boilies, I don't have that crazy bite rate, but I'm also catching a little higher quality of fish, which seemed like appropriate for this video. Again, I hope this has been helpful for someone. It has been fun to try to think about what would I prioritize and saying, again, there's going to be people who watch this that know more than I've forgotten. No, that's not right. There's going to be people that watch this that have forgotten more than I know about carp fishing in Russian Fishing 4, and certainly about carp fishing in real life. My goodness. And so please, in the comments below, if you have corrections or critiques or suggestions, as long as you say them in respectful ways, I totally invite it. And a lot of this stuff we have to experiment with. Is that a nice fish? I can't quite tell. I think it's decent. And you may just have had different experiences. Your results just may have been a little different, or you may have tried things that you thought have worked really well that are different than what I've said. Please share that with the community. I welcome all that kind of feedback. That's a pretty fish. What kind of fish do you think took my bait here and then just hung out? What do you think this is? It's just sitting there. Feels like a carp. Small though. Haha. Okay, guys. I totally should have called it. I haven't caught one of these in a while in this spot, but they used to be a little more active. What kind of fish takes your bait and never pulls? Well, if you've ever fished for them in this game, the eye does it all the time. You'll have an eye on and you won't have any clue that there's an eye on there. I should have known that that's what it was. I should have known. That's exactly what does it. The eyed. We're up to 40 fish already. Good grief. Guys, I've been fishing different spots around amber. Even over here on the other side of the lake. Some down here. The pond a little bit. Tried over here. Actually, I tried. Let's see. Yeah, I tried over here. Going this way. I've tried here. Amber's been on fire lately. I have made several thousand silver in a couple days. And I haven't been playing that intensely either. I mean, I've been like playing Guild Wars 2 and kind of like carp fishing a little bit off to the side. I've made a couple videos, but it's been really good lately. So it's been fun. I really thought it'd be another week or so before I got that Tagara, but Amber has come through for me lately, and I was able to complete the trio of carp setups. And I'm really, really happy with those. Okay, I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. Yeah, nothing else is coming to me like, oh, but I'm sure as soon as I stop recording, something really, really obvious or something that I really wish I would have shared will come to mind. But remember what I said at the beginning? Again, if you're new to amber or you're new to carp fishing, please don't go blow all your silver on buying a wide range of boilies. Build those up over time slowly. Just buy the boilie that you need because you have heard that they're working good or you have checked the weeklies. Please, I mean, all the time people ask me, what baits should I use, for this or that fish? And I don't mind answering questions. I mean, I can give my opinion. But the best way to find out is go to, let's say you really want to get your common ghost carp at amber. Okay, you're like, I just haven't caught one of those. They look really cool. Well, go look at the weekly. It's like, okay, these are some interesting baits. Now, garlic mussels, mussel flavor, corn. I've been using that a lot. Now these other ones I haven't tried. This is great. I mean, this is great information. Look at that sandwich. It's like, so you look at the baits. That gives you some ideas, and then go try it. And I'm not saying don't try anything on your own. You can, but just like buy one at a time. Get like, say like, I really want to try strawberry boilies. I'm gonna get some strawberry dip, strawberry boilies. Then just, get whatever, 50 of them. Hit that thing a couple times, get 50 boilies, get some dip. Go try it, see if it's working. I just, too many people have spent way too much silver, in my opinion. I mean, do what you want. It's a game. Have fun. Do what's fun. In my opinion, people have spent too much money thinking like, oh, I need to build up this huge stable of boilies. No, you just need to find a bait that's working, and go catch some fish and make some silver and have some fun catching carp. You'll have plenty of time to build up your stable of boilies, if that's even a goal of yours. You want to see one more fish? I mean, I've already gone almost an hour in Carp Fishing 101 here. I mean, I'm going to be hoarse tomorrow. I'm talking so much. Y'all got to be sick of hearing me talk. I don't know if that fish is actually going to get on. It's just nibbling. Okay. Hey, tight lines, wet nets, fill up your keep net, and good luck. Thank y'all for being here. Thanks for being the best. What a great community we have here at RF4. And again, I hope this is helpful. And I will talk to you soon. Come say hello in game. Say hello on YouTube. But tight lines, everybody. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Just know that I'm about to catch a trophy, because that's usually what happens as soon as I stop the recording. Peace out, guys. Peace out.